City Council elections to fill a vacant seat. In this program, I'll be chatting with Rickie Tulloch and Hercules Reid, 2 of 11 candidates who are gearing up for a special election to fill the City Council seat vacated by Jumani Williams. Mr. Williams has moved on up. This empty seat in the 45th Council District covers East Flatbush, Flatlands, Marine Park, and Midwood. And it's got to be filled very soon. More than 188,000 people live in this district, and we have some of them in the studio. Welcome to Brooklyn 45. So let's welcome our guests. Rickie Tulloch, Senior Director at New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation. He is not new to politics. He ran against Councilman Matthew Eugene in 2009, the 40th District City Council race, and came in second to now Assemblywoman Rodney's Bichot. Hercules Reid, the youngest candidate in the 11-person race. His venture into politics began in college where, as a student, he fought against tuition hikes at CUNY and advocated for more capital funding. He was also a legislative director of the University Student Senate and is now a community organizer working with New York City Council member and a New York State Assembly member. Again, welcome to Brooklyn 45.
Thank you for having us.
My first question, of course, is to you, Rickie. Why are you running for City Council?
I'm running for City Council. My name is Rickie Tulloch. Let me say a pleasant good evening to each and every one. I'm running for the City Council because I'm passionate about improving the lives of the members of our community and improving upon what Jumani, our now public advocate, have done in the community. Ever since I left Jamaica in a small village, I came to the community that we now are vying for. I went to Erasmus Hall High School, went to Brooklyn College, all in the district, continuously lived in the district, and also served on Community Board 17 for over 18 years, 7 as land use chair, 7 as treasurer, served on the Flatbush Action Community Daycare Center for over 15 years, once as chair, and also served on ENF, which is a local nonprofit within the community. So I see the needs and I know the needs of our community, and I'm running to improve the stock for all of our community members, whether it's the seniors or the youngsters.
Mr. Hercules Reid, you're young to politics. Why are you running?
Young to politics, but not new to politics. I'm the son of 2 Jamaican immigrants who came here so that one day I would have an opportunity like this. Growing up, I saw opportunities that I didn't know where it was going to take me. I always wanted to run a race. For me, at first, it was the Olympics. But then as life went on, I realized that I had a different race to run. And 4 years ago, on April 1st, I was hit by a car. And after surviving that crash or that accident, I realized that I was, to me, as a believer, kept alive to serve a bigger purpose than myself. I went on to become the student government president at City Tech. And I always like to say that once you know what you know, it's hard to unknow it. And for me, it was about making steps in a direction that was about service before position. And as I continued on in the work of service, opportunities and doors kept taking me away from going to the Olympics versus going to serve and be a man of the people. And I made a decision. I said that, you know what, I think that I had a wrong vision for my race. My Olympics was to get into City Council. So I'm here today because, one, I want to make an example to those coming behind me that things like this is possible. And I also want to continue to serve the people like I have been. Being the legislative director for CUNY's University Student Senate allowed me to advocate for 500,000 students in an academic year. So when I say I understand a lot of the issues of an everyday New Yorker, not just the ones within my district, that's what I mean. And I am looking forward to the opportunity because on the ballot, I am the opportunity candidate.
Gentrification is becoming a concern for many New Yorkers, including residents of the 45th District. How do you plan to address this? Hercules, you first.
Okay. Well, when it comes to gentrification, as I speak to some of the constituents as I've been out getting on the ballot, one of their concerns is definitely being priced out. And when you think about being priced out, you have to consider that the rent is being raised so other type of people can afford to live there. And the ones that are currently there can no longer be there. I think for me, one of the most important things that we need to do is educate our young folk who are coming up on the importance of, one, creating generational wealth, but also the importance of home ownership and ownership. Once we do that, and then we go on to what's happening now as far as gentrification. I went to school and I studied architectural technology, and I realized that a lot of this is about policy, what's being allowed and what's not being allowed. And for me as a city council member, my job is to go in there, check the policies as they are, and see what needs to be changed and updated to make sure that the people who live in our community now are the ones that can remain there. I know that there's people who've lived there for 30, 40, 50 years and they don't plan to go anywhere. So gentrification is definitely something that I plan to address so that we can keep this community very vibrant.
Rickie,
Well, you know the old saying, prevention is better than cure.
I've heard about it.
Yes. So I intend to prevent gentrification, and I'll tell you how. You know, in our community, most of the homeowners are seniors. They are getting up there in age. And as they lived in this community, the value of their property increased, taxes has increased, and therefore, because they are on fixed income, they are not able to maintain their property. We don't want what happened in Bed-Stuy or in Harlem to happen to our community. And therefore, what I would do is to provide preventative measures and provide preventative funding in the city council. Because, for example, just the homelessness, right? You have $1.4 billion that was allocated to homeless shelters. You have $251 million allocated for homelessness prevention. You have $250 million provided to reintroduce those folks into the homes. What we are saying is that we should, just like you have for the renters and so forth, we should have the SCREE for the homeowners, meaning, you know, senior citizen tax increase exemption, so that those folks can stay in their homes. Now, as it relates to the renters, we want to, again, to have the preventative funding in place. So I would increase that preventative funding from $250 million to about $700 million, so that you prevent people from being homeless and prevent people from being gentrified. Because if they can stay in their homes, then you won't have the gentrification.
I'm coming back to you. Immigrants represent a significant percentage of the population in the 45th district and indeed across New York City. That's where you guys are hoping to be. How would you address or allay the fears of those who are affected either directly or through their relationships with family members, especially in view of all the rhetoric we're hearing from our president?
Well, as an immigrant, and as I said earlier, I came from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, and Jamaica specifically, in 1976. So I know the fears of the immigrants. So what I would do in my office, we would put in programs to make sure that we have immigration services, so that we don't, when you hear people talk about ICE coming in onto a block, we would not have that fear, because we would educate our community members about the necessary immigration. But more importantly, work with the federal officials on the immigration issue, because we need comprehensive immigration reform. And I think that in itself, you know, you need a city council person who can work with not only the federal, the state, and every elected official to get the job done, and harm that person who can do just that.
Hercules, you're shaking your head. Go.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement that, you know, when it comes to advocacy, you have to go to the federal level, the state level, and at the city level. And for me, you know, I've been an advocate for immigrants. I'm from, you know, New York, but the son of two immigrants and family who's still coming from Jamaica and trying to get their citizenship. I think that one thing that we could do is make sure we help people on their pathway to citizenship, for one. Once we assist them with their pathway to citizenship, we address the others who may not be having, get their citizenship right away, where we want to make sure that they're comfortable. I believe in protecting our vibrant community, which I have said earlier, and that means that people have to feel safe in the communities that they are. While I was a CUNY student and activist, I firsthand dealt with Dreamers, DACA, and when Donald Trump came into office, one of the first things he did was he released a Muslim ban. And I was one of the many students who was on the forefront of a student's situation who went to Iran and was not able to come back even though she had a visa because she was on the list. And even as a student, I said I couldn't do much because this was a federal matter. But I stepped up to the plate and I took on the challenge of saying that, you know what, where there's a will, there's a way. And a week later, through working with CUNY Citizenship Now, and different lawyers, along with having a press conference in front of the federal courthouse with Eric Adams and others, we were able to, a week later, bring her home. And one of the things that I'm proud of is being one of those people who would not stop until she came home. And for my community here, whether it's Muslims, Jamaicans, Haitians, Jewish people, wherever they come from, I want to make sure that they feel safe and are protected, and I will do whatever it takes to do so.
My next question is on education. That's what you were talking about just now. 70% of New York's overall student population is Black and Hispanic. And that's versus 10% of the students admitted to the 8 elite high schools. Now, Speaker Corey Johnson, and you guys are going to be, whichever of you get into City Council will be in contact with him, he is saying it is time to act. He wants to see more students getting to specialized high schools, and he wants to see the expansion of these specialized high schools. I'm beginning with you.
Oh, what was the question exactly?
The question is, do you agree with Corey Johnson that it is time to act and get an expansion of these specialized high schools? Is it right to have so few Black and Hispanic students in these specialized high schools?
One of my main platforms is equity. I think that no matter where you live, where you come from, your zip code, your ethnicity, we should all have equal access, in this case, to quality, affordable education. And as someone who both attended public school and private school, I understand that that's also a choice that a parent should make. If they can afford it, they should be able to do it. Which means that if my mom says, I want to take my son to this charter school, this private school, whatever it is, and I'm educated, I'm smart, there should be a way for me to get in just like the other students, right? We're talking about equity. There shouldn't be a cap saying only 7 Black students and 10 white and 3 Spanish. There should never be that type of system in place. So it is time. And one of the reasons I'm running, because it's time for a lot of things to change. It's time that we change a lot of these old systems that have not been working, have not been serving us, that we continue to day in and day out talk about, but not fix anything. So, as far as what Corey Johnson is trying to do for the city, I'm very in support of it. Expansion is good because then it provides more people with opportunities. However, once those expansions happen, we have to be on the ground as city council members, making sure what is the acceptance policies, what are the criteria that they are using, and do they have to live in a certain area, and if so, what areas and why? And those are the things that I want to make sure that is lined up, because like I said, policy is always at the core of every issue. And once the policy is fixed or it's reformed, we have equity or something closer to it.
Rickie, your turn.
Well, sometimes they said, don't fix what's broken. Back in the 80s, and during my time and my children's time, there were a lot of gifted programs in our schools. It allowed folks like my kids to excel, move up the ladder, and get into some of these schools. As a matter of fact, as early as in the late 90s, in Brooklyn Tech, more than 51% of the kids were Black and brown. Well, because they cut those gifted programs, now we're seeing the results. And so since my very first run for office, I've been preaching the need for more gifted programs in our school that would allow our kids to expand to and more rigorous educational standards in our schools, so that it allow our kids to excel, and so we wouldn't have what happened just last week happens, where you only have 7 black kids in the specialized high school. Again, prevention is better than cure. Put in this stuff in place, put in the gifted programs, and we do need the gifted programs in our school, it will alleviate the talk about even expansion. We definitely need to expand the specialized high school, but it's not just expanding. We need to start from the beginning, provide gifted programs, provide rigorous educational standards, and also, but more importantly, for those kids who can't get into those programs and can't get into college, we have to make sure that we put in place that, jobs training skills. We might have to have alternate educational. But I think the young man had mentioned something about equity. You also need to teach our kids about financial stability and financial programs in our schools early on, so that they have a well-rounded education, that when they step out, they not only can go to those specialized schools, they can go on to college, the Ivy League colleges, and CUNY Brooklyn College like I did, because you do get a good education in those schools.
Let's move to housing. Housing costs in Brooklyn, those costs are soaring, and homelessness has become a really, really big issue. How would you address affordable housing?
Well, in my opening statement, I indicated that, I would put more preventative funding in the preventative programs, right? And I stated that we would increase that from $250 million to up to about $700 million, simply because you want to make sure that, the folks can stay in their homes. But more importantly, also, as it relates to affordability, I would tie affordability in our community to the poverty rate, not to the AMI. Because, in a changing community, the AMIs tend to go up. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, the AMI is the average median income in that community. So when you tie it to the poverty rate, it will allow more people to be caught into the affordable gap. And also, we want to make sure that when we build in our community, because the ULUR process is the land use process that allows, give let the folks build in our community. And so the city council person has a direct impact on that. And so when anyone comes into our community and wants to build, the first thing I would negotiate is to make sure that 50% of those housing, especially if you're getting public funding, 50% goes towards affordable housing. And again, it will be based on the poverty level, not the AMI.
Hercules.
Thank goodness for my education. While I was studying architectural technology, I learned about things like the ADA, and it opened up my mind to understand a lot of the everyday issues and why things are the way they are. But it also taught me about affordable housing and how, one, there's a percentage that when developers come in, they have to make this much affordable, some of this portion for the elderly, and the rest for whoever they want. I myself, I'm here because I want to fight for the everyday person like myself. While I was in college, was what you can consider invisibly homeless. I did not have a place to consistently live and lay my head while I was in school because I was in student government and I was also an architect student. So I chose that over finding a job to afford expensive rent, which was almost impossible. It wasn't until after I graduated that I was able to get a job, which then gave me income that said, okay, now it's time to look for somewhere to live. When that happened, I did what most people have been doing. I went to look for affordable housing. I went on the sites, I filled out the applications, and as I was looking, I saw affordable meant $79,000, $90,000 in a salary. And I thought at that point what I was making was way more than I could even ask for. But I did not qualify for these affordable housing. So we have to ask, what really are they considering affordable housing when most of the people who are low income aren't even especially in New York, aren't making over $20,000 to $30,000 a year? So for me, I'm going to continue to address the fact that we keep looking at society up here and the people down here are the ones that are suffering. We keep having the conversations about affordable housing, but we haven't realized and spoke up enough about the fact that it still does not exist. So for me, again, back to the policy, figuring out what are those percentages, and he said 50-50. Whatever that compromise and reform needs to be to ensure that affordable is affordable, one of the main things I'm going to address is, what is that number? 79,000, however does that make sense, right? Logically, I just don't think that will ever work for us.
Let's talk about Census 2020, which will soon be upon us. Lots of people who live in our district are not aware of the Census 2020, and many people in our district are immigrants. How would you get the word out to people who live in the district that participating in the census is important, and letting them know what the benefits are and what the disadvantages are as well?
So I've actually partnered with other community group. I'm the chairman of VPAC, which is the Visionary Political Action Committee, and we've partnered with other groups to make sure that we get the word out. But more importantly, as we said, we want to make sure that everyone in our community is counted, because that ties into the reimbursement and the funding that is flowed into our community. And so, one of the ways that we have looked at is to notify the churches, because a lot of our folks go to the churches to get the word out. We've had other creative measures, and we just plain word of mouth, talking to people about the importance of being counted. Because again, sometimes folks might say, well, why do I need to be counted? It doesn't mean anything to me. But when they learn the importance, you learn that if we don't have the count right, that we will lose a congressional seat, right? Which means that money is not going to be flowing into our community. Then they take a different look. As long as folks know that it's safe to be counted, and that if you are counted, you're not going to be turned over, especially if they're undocumented, and they know that. And those are usually the people who are afraid. But if they know that you're not going to be called, the ICE is not going to come looking for you because you participate in the census, then they're at ease and they will participate with this.
Hercules.
While I was a student leader, I had the privilege of working with Deputy Mayor Phil Thompson on the beginning stages of the Census 2020, where my role, or what he was trying to help me do, was get the students involved, because he knew I had access there. I think we're in a society where people are afraid of speaking up. They're afraid of being visible because of what's happening around us. So I do think there's an actual issue when it comes to, are we going to get to everybody? Are we going to be able to educate everyone on the importance of being counted? Because most people rather just not even have their name even on my petition, because they're worried about what may happen after. So what I think is the most effective way is what I've been doing thus far to get on the ballot. People-to-people interaction. Making them see another human who has a level of education about this, coming to them on a personal level to explain to them what is actually going on and the importance of getting involved. Just like I've been doing to get them to sign my petition. This is what's going on, this is why you should get involved, and I hope you understand that it goes beyond this right now. It's about getting to the polls, to vote. It's about, talking to the, what I mean? So with the census, I plan to do the same, and then I, as an elected official, will continue to door knock. I will continue to be out in the streets and talking to the people, because I've witnessed, even as a student leader, that's how you become the most effective when it comes to getting to the community.
600,000 New Yorkers are uninsured. And a large percentage of those are undocumented. We have lots of them living in your area, in the 42nd District. Bill de Blasio has been talking about health care for all. How do you feel about that?
Well, last year, I actually was taken off of my own parents' insurance, because there's the law that once you turn, 26, 27, 24. I apologize, I don't have it correct, but I know I'm no longer on my parents' insurance. So I had to go about looking for my own, and I still haven't found one that I can afford. So when you think about me, I think about others. If I am in this predicament, how many others are as well either looking for the one they can afford or looking for one that can properly service them? I think that we need to definitely have a system where equity is involved, where it shouldn't matter how much money you make to get health care. That's one of the things that I want to focus on specifically, equity in the healthcare system.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you one of those 2 minutes.
Okay, and so regarding healthcare, I work with the New York City Health and Hospital Corporation. That's an organization that has been able to provide health care for the indigent, the undocumented, and all. It's a organization that provides health care for everyone. So we know that universal health care is the thing that we need in this community. That way we will be able to have insurance for every single person. And that is something that I will definitely work on as your next city council person.
Can we have a round of applause for our candidates? Rickie Tulloch and Hercules Reid, 2 of 11 candidates participating in a special election to fill the vacant city council seat in the 45th Council District. And of course that covers East Flatbush, Midwood, and also covers Flatlands. Next week you'll be hearing from 3 others, Jovia Radix, Jamela Rose, Anthony Beckford. You can also watch this program on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Brooklyn45TV. You can see the list of the other candidates who are running on our Facebook page, as well as facebook.com/Brooklyn45TV. On behalf of our Brooklyn 45 team, I am Sam Tate.